August 12th, 1899. Volume 2. Jesus transforms her completely in himself and teaches her charity. This morning, after he made me wait for some time, my adorable Jesus came, telling me, "My daughter, this morning I want to conform you completely to myself. I want you to think with my own mind, look with my own eyes, listen with my own ears, speak with my own tongue, operate with my own hands, walk with my own feet, and love with my own heart." After this, Jesus united his senses mentioned above to mine, and I saw that he was giving me his own shape. Not only this, but he gave me the grace to make use of it as he himself did. Then he continued, "Great graces am I pouring in you. Make sure you keep them well." And I fear very much, O my beloved Jesus, in knowing myself all full of misery, that instead of doing good, I may make bad use of your graces. But what I fear the most is my tongue, that oftentimes makes me slip in charity toward my neighbor. And Jesus, "Do not fear. I myself will teach you the way you must keep in speaking with your neighbor. First, when you are told something about your neighbor, cast a gaze upon yourself and observe whether you are guilty of that same defect. For in that case, wanting to correct is wanting to make me indignant and to scandalize your neighbor. Second, if you see yourself free of that defect, rise then, and try to speak as I would have. In this way you will speak with my own tongue. By doing so, you will never fail in charity with your neighbor. On the contrary, with your words, you will do good to yourself and to your neighbor, and to me you will give honor and glory." August 12, 1904, Volume 6. Man disperses the beauty with which God created him. As I continued struggling, all of a sudden I found all of myself inside our Lord, and from his head a shining thread descended into mine, which bound me completely inside of Jesus. Oh, how happy I was to be inside of him! As much as I looked, I could see nothing but him alone. This is my highest happiness. Only Jesus, him alone and nothing else. Oh, how well one feels! Meanwhile, he told me, "Courage, my daughter. Don't you see how the thread of my will binds you completely inside of me? So if any other will wants to bind you, if it is not holy, it cannot, because since you are inside of me, if it is not holy, it cannot enter into me." And while saying this, he looked at me over and over again, and then he added, "I created the soul with a rare beauty. I endowed her with a light superior to any other created light, and yet man disperses this beauty inside ugliness, and this light inside darkness." August 12, 1910, Volume 9. The origin of all the evil of priests is in dealing with souls about human things. As I was in my usual state, I found myself outside of myself, and I saw some priests, as well as Jesus, who made himself seen in my interior all dislocated and with his limbs detached. Jesus pointed at those priests, making me understand that even though they were priests, they were members detached from his body. And lamenting, he said, "My daughter, how offended I am by priests. The superiors do not watch over my sacramental lot, and expose me to enormous sacrileges. These whom you see are separated members, and although they offend me very much, my body has no more contact with their wicked actions. But the others who pretend they are not separated from me and continue their actions as priests, oh, how much more they offend me. To what an atrocious slaughter I am exposed. How many chastisements they draw. I can bear them no more. And as he was saying this, I saw many priests running away from the church and turning against the church to wage war against her. I looked at those priests with great sorrow, and I felt a light that made me comprehend that the origin of this and all the evil of priests is in dealing with souls about human things, things all of a material nature, without a strict necessity. These human things form a net for the priests, which blinds his mind, hardens his heart to divine things, and prevents his step on the path that befits him in the office of his ministry. Not only this, but it is a net for souls, because they bring what is human and receive what is human, and grace remains as though excluded from them. Oh, how much evil is committed by these! How many slaughters of souls they make! May the Lord enlighten everyone. August 12th, 1912, Volume 11. Divine love, which is firm and genuine, is symbolized by the sun. The love that is not completely for Jesus is similar to the fire of the earth. This morning, as soon as my always adorable Jesus came, he told me, "My daughter, my love is symbolized by the sun. The sun rises majestically, but as it rises, it is always fixed and it never really rises. It invades the entire earth with its light. It fecundates all the plants with its heat. There is no eye which does not enjoy it. One could say that there is almost no good on the earth which doesn't come from its beneficial influence. How many things would not have life without it? Yet it does all this without clamor, without saying even a word, without demanding anything. It does not bother anyone. It doesn't even take up any space on earth, which it invades with its light. Men can do whatever they want. In fact, while they enjoy the goodness of the sun, they do not pay any attention to it, leaving it unobserved among them. Such is my love, symbolized by the sun. It rises in the midst of all, like a majestic sun. There is no mind that is not irradiated by my light. There is no heart that does not feel my warmth. There is no soul that is not embraced by my love. More than sun, I am in the midst of all. Alas, how few pay attention to me. I remain almost unobserved in the midst of them. I receive no return, but I continue to give light, heat, and love. If a soul pays attention to me, I go mad, but without clamor, because my love is not subject to weaknesses, being firm, fixed, and genuine. Just so would I like your love for me, and if it were so, you would become also sun for me and for all, since true love possesses all the qualities of the sun. On the other hand, a love which is not firm, fixed, or genuine is symbolized by earthly fire, which is subject to variations. Its light is not capable of illuminating all. It is a very gloomy light, mixed with smoke. Its heat is limited, and if it is not fed with wood, it dies down and turns into ash, while if the wood is green, it sputters and smokes. Such are the souls who are not completely for me as my true lovers. If they do any good, it is more noise and smoke that comes out of their actions than light. If they are not fed by some human bother, even under the aspect of sanctity or conscience, they fade and become colder than ash. Inconstancy is their characteristic. Now fire, now ash. August 12, 1915, Volume 11. The will, the love, the desires of the soul, running together with those of Jesus, will form the net to defend both of them and to save souls. As I was in my usual state, my always adorable Jesus came for a little while, telling me, "My daughter, how hard people are. The scourge of war is not enough. The misery is not sufficient to make them surrender. They want to be touched in their own flesh. Otherwise one cannot manage to make them mend their ways. In fact, look what happens in battles. How holy religion gains within them on battlefields. And why? Because they are being touched in their own flesh. This is why it is necessary that there be no country which will not be caught in the net, in one way or another, but that all of them be exposed to being touched in their own flesh. I do not want to do this, but their hardness forces me to." In saying this, he was crying. I cried along, and I prayed him that he would make the people surrender with no slaughter and no blood, and that all be saved. And Jesus, "My daughter, everything will be enclosed in the union of our wills. Your volition will run together with mine, pleading sufficient graces for the salvation of souls. Your love will run into mine. Your desires and your heartbeat will run into mine, asking for souls with an eternal heartbeat. All this will form a net around you and me, in which we will remain as if woven inside. And this will serve as bulwark for defense, within which, while defending me, you will be protected from any danger. How sweet it is for me to hear in my heartbeat the heartbeat of a creature who says, 'Souls, souls.' I feel as if chained and conquered, I surrender." August 12, 1916, Volume 11, Glory of the Souls Who Will Live in the Divine Will on Earth. I was fusing myself in the most holy will, and my sweet Jesus told me, "My daughter, only by one who lives in my will do I feel as though repaid for creation, redemption, and sanctification, and she glorifies me in the way in which the creature must glorify me. Therefore these souls will be the gems of my throne, and will take within themselves all the contentments and the glory which each blessed will have for himself alone. These souls will be as though queens around my throne, and all the blessed will be around them. And just as the blessed will be as many suns that will shine in the celestial Jerusalem, the souls who have lived in my will shine in my own sun. They will be as though circumfused with my sun, and these souls will see the blessed from within me, because it is right that, having lived on earth united with me, with my will, as they lived no life of their own, they have a place distinct from all others in heaven, and they continue in heaven the life which they lived on earth, completely transformed in me and immersed in the sea of my contentments." August 12, 1918, Volume 12, The Predominant Passion of Luisa, that Jesus free her from the bother in which his will placed her. Continuing in my usual state, I was thinking to myself that if the Lord wanted something from me, he should give me a sign, that is, to free me from the coming of the priest. And blessed Jesus made himself seen in my interior, with a ball in his hand, as if he was in the act of throwing it to the ground. Then he told me, "My daughter, this is your predominant passion, that I free you from the bother in which my will placed you. I keep you in this state for the whole world, and I use you so as not to send it to complete demolition, while this other thing with which you could do good is a small part." And my Jesus, I cannot understand this. You keep me without suffering. It seems that you hold me suspended from the state of victim, and then you tell me that you are using me in order to not send the world to demolition. And Jesus, yet it is false that you do not suffer. At the most, you do not suffer such pains as to be able to disarm me completely. And if sometimes you remain suspended, your part, your will, is not in it. On the other hand, your will would enter in here. You cannot understand the sweet violence that you do to me with your waiting, your feeling suspended, not seeing me as you used to, and still remaining at the same place, without moving in anything. And then I want to have freedom over you whenever I please. I will keep you suspended. When I don't, I will keep you bound. I want you at the mercy of my will, without your will. If you are happy with this, you can do it, otherwise not. Another day I was feeling sick because of the continuous throwing up that I do, and I was saying to my sweet Jesus, what would you have lost in giving me the grace of not feeling the necessity to take food, such that then I am forced to bring it up? I say this to obey. And my lovable Jesus told me, "My daughter, what are you saying? Quiet, quiet, do not say this anymore. You must know that if you did not need anything, I would let the peoples die of starvation. But because you need it, since it can serve your necessities, I give the necessary things to creatures for love of you and because of you. Therefore, if I listened to you, you would harm the others. On the other hand, by taking food and then bringing it up, you do good to others, and your suffering glorifies me. Even more, how many times do I see you suffering while you throw up? And since you suffer in my will, I take that suffering of yours, I multiply it, I divide it for the good of creatures, and pleased, I say to myself, this is the bread of my daughter, which I give for the good of my children." August 12, 1922, Volume 14, Value and Effects of Sacrifice. I felt oppressed and in pain, in such a way that only my sweet Jesus can know. He scrutinizes each fiber of my poor heart and sees all the intensity of my torment. Having compassion for me on coming, he sustained me in his arms, telling me, "My daughter, courage, I am here for you. What do you fear? Have I perhaps failed you? And if at any cost you do not feel like moving the slightest from my will, much less do I feel like not being with you, as life of each act and pain of yours. Now you must know that my will is most pure gold, and so that the thread of your will may become of most pure gold, in such a way that, as the thread of your will is braided with mine, that which is yours and that which is mine may not be distinguished. It takes only sacrifice and pains. Consuming the thread of your human will, they substitute it with the golden divine thread, which, identifying itself with mine, forms one single thread, and braiding the great wheel of eternity, extends everywhere and finds itself in every place. But if my will is gold and yours is iron, you will remain behind, and mine will not lower itself to be braided with yours. If you take two objects of gold, though each one may have its own different shape, By melting them, you will be able to form one single object, and would no longer be able to discern the gold of one from that of the other. But if one object is of gold and the other of iron, one will not stick to the other, and it will be impossible to form one single object. So only sacrifice changes the nature of the human will. Sacrifice is the burning fire that melts and consumes. Sacrifice is sacred and has the virtue of consecrating the divine will in the human. Sacrifice is grace, and with its skillful brush it impresses the divine shape and features. Here is the reason for the increasing of your sufferings. These are the final brushstrokes which are needed in order to produce the final extension and braiding of your will in mine. And I, my Jesus, all of my sufferings, as painful as they are, such that they seem to annihilate me, do not oppress me. And if it pleases you, multiply them for me. But you know which one is the pain that tortures me. For that one I implore your compassion, for it seems that I cannot go on any more. Oh, please, for pity's sake, help me and free me, if you please. And Jesus, my daughter, in this pain also I will be with you. I will be your help. I will give you my strength in order to bear it. I could make you content, but it would not be decorous for me to do that. A work so high, a mission so sublime and unique, calling you to live in my will, would sound odd to me if I did not make it pass through the organ of my church. Besides, it was through my will and through the intervention of obedience to a minister of mine that you were placed in this state. If he does not feel like continuing, he can give you the obedience, so that as you would do it to obey, there would still be perfect agreement between me and you. In fact, if you did it by yourself, of your own will, not only would we not remain in agreement, but you would remain disfigured. However, they must know that the world is currently on a stake, and if they want me to raise its flames and burn everything to ashes, then let them do what they want. I remain terrified and more afflicted than before, but ready to do his most holy will, not mine. August 12, 1926, Volume 19. The divine will cannot reign if the three powers of the soul are not ordered with God. The privations of my sweet Jesus are getting longer. Oh, how he makes me yearn for his return. How hours and days seem like centuries without him. But centuries of night, not of days. So while I was anxiously waiting for his return, like a rising flash he came out from within my interior, and clasping me to himself told me, "My daughter, man was created by God with three powers, memory, intellect, and will, and this so that he might have the links of communications with the divine persons of the Sacrosanct Trinity. These were like paths along which to ascend to God, like doors through which to enter, like rooms in which to form the continuous dwelling, the creature for God, God for the creature. These are the royal paths of both of them, the gold doors which God placed in the depth of the soul, through which the supreme sovereignty of the divine majesty might enter, the safe and unshakable room in which God was to have his celestial dwelling. Now, in order to be able to form its kingdom in the inmost place of the soul, my will wants to find these three powers given to the creature to raise her to the likeness of the Creator, in order with the Father, with the Son, and with the Holy Spirit. My will would not go out of its dominions If these three powers of the soul were in order with God, and its reigning would be happy and as though natural, because her three powers being in order with God, the creature would have order within herself and outside of herself, and the kingdom of the will of God and that of the creature would not be a divided kingdom, but a single one, and therefore its dominion and regime would be one. More so, since my will does not know how to reign where there is no order and harmony, inseparable qualities and indispensable properties of the divine persons. And the soul can never be ordered and harmonized with her Creator if she does not have her three powers open to receive from God His qualities ordered and His properties harmonized, in such a way that, finding the divine harmonies and the supreme order of the divine kingdom and of the human kingdom, my will may make them one and reign in it with its full dominion. Ah, my daughter, how much disorder reigns in the three powers of the human soul! One can say that they have shut the door on our face. They have barricaded the paths to prevent our passing and to break the communications with us, while it was the greatest gift we gave man in creating him. These three powers were to serve him to comprehend the one who had created him, to grow in his likeness, and his will being transfused in that of his Creator, to give him the right to let it reign. This is why the supreme volition cannot reign in the soul if these three powers, intellect, memory, and will, do not hold hands in order to return to the purpose for which God created man. Therefore pray that these three powers may return to the order and the harmony of their Creator, so that my supreme will may reign with its full triumph. August 12, 1927, Volume 22. How Incessant Prayer Conquers God. Uproaring of Nature. The Three Little Fountains. Preparations for World Wars. I felt myself in the terrible nightmare of his privation. I was oppressed. I agonized. I felt so ill that I could take no more. And my adorable Jesus, after having pressed me well under a press so painful, having compassion for my extreme affliction, clasped me tightly in his arms, telling me, "Poor daughter, how you suffer. Courage. I do not want you to reduce yourself to these extremes. You oppress yourself too much. Yet you should be consoled. Your interior is a continuous speaking before the Divine Majesty, and a continuous act, and a speaking ever unceasing before God, wanting the kingdom of my divine Fiat, brings with itself the certainty of victory. So either you have won, or you are about to win. A continuous doing and speaking acquires the nature of a winning power before God, and it is as if God would lose the resisting strength, while the soul acquires the winning strength. An exchange takes place. God is disarmed, and the soul is armed with divine weapons. But the Supreme Being is not given to being able to resist. Does that asking me continuously for the kingdom of my eternal will seem trivial to you? Going around through the whole creation and over again, and all its acts I did in redemption, as well as in the seas of the acts of love and of sorrow of the Sovereign Queen of Heaven, to ask for my kingdom? You seek nothing for yourself, and you go round and round, asking over and over again that my divine will be known, and that it dominate and reign. Not a shadow of what is human enters into this, nor any personal interest. It is the holiest and most divine prayer and act. It is prayer of heaven, not of earth, and therefore the purest, the most beautiful, the invincible one, that encloses only the interest of the divine glory. Until now, no one has prayed me with such insistence. My mamma did pray me with such insistence for the sake of redemption, and she was victorious. But for the kingdom of my will, no one until now with such insistence as to conquer a god. Therefore your insistence says much. The very uproaring of all nature says much. In these times, all the elements uproaring are bearers of goods, and this is necessary to reorder my kingdom. It is the greatest thing, and it takes the uproaring in order to purify the earth. Therefore I do not want you to oppress yourself too much, but rather keep on with your continuous flight, with your insistence, so as to acquire the complete strength to win the kingdom of the supreme Fiat. So I continued praying, and I felt a hand being placed on my head, and from this hand 3 little fountains came out. One of them emitted water, another fire, and the other one blood, that inundated the earth. And people, cities, and kingdoms were swept away. It was horrifying to see the evils that will come. And I prayed my beloved Jesus to placate himself, asking him for some sufferings, so that the peoples might be spared. And Jesus told me, "My daughter, water, fire, and blood will unite together and will make justice. All the nations are taking up arms to make war, and this irritates divine justice more, and disposes the elements to take revenge against them. Therefore the earth will pour out fire, the air will send fountains of waters, and the wars will form fountains of human blood, in which many will disappear, and cities and regions will be destroyed." What wickedness! After so many evils of a war they have gone through, they are preparing another one, more terrible, and they are trying to move almost the entire world, as if it were one single man. Does this not say that sin has entered deep into their bones, to the point of transforming their very nature into sin? Oh, how ill I felt in hearing this, and I prayed Jesus to put justice aside, letting mercy enter the field. And if he wanted a victim, I was ready, as long as the people would be spared. And if you do not want to concede this to me, take me away from the earth, for I can no longer stay here. Your privations give me continuous death. The scourges torture me. And then, how can I live when I cannot spare our brothers the pains through my pains? Jesus, Jesus, pity on me, pity on all. Placate yourself and make your little daughter content. At that moment, I don't know how, I felt myself being invested by pains that I had not felt for some time. I am unable to say what I went through, and this gives me hope that the grave evils may be held back at least in part. August 12, 1928, Volume 24. One who lives in the divine Fiat rises back into the acts of innocent Adam and possesses the universal virtue. How the Fiat is order. How the life of one who lives in it is precious. I was continuing my round in the creation, and I paused now at one point, now at another, to be able to follow and look at what God had done in creation. And arriving at what Adam had done in the state of innocence, I was saying to myself, how I wish I were able to do what our Father did in the state of innocence, so that I too might love and glorify my Creator as he did in his original state of his creation. But while I was thinking of this, my beloved Jesus, moving in my interior, told me, "My daughter, in the state of his innocence, possessing the life of my divine will, Adam possessed the universal life and virtue. Therefore I found the love of everything and of everyone centralized in his love and in his acts, and all the acts were unified together. Not even my operating was excluded from his act. So in the operating of Adam I found everything. I found all the tints of beauties, fullness of love, unreachable and admirable mastery, and then everything and everyone. Now one who lives in my will rises back into the act of Adam innocent, and making the universal life and virtue her own, she makes his act her own. Not only this, but she rises back into the acts of the Queen of Heaven, in those of her very Creator, and flowing in all the acts, she centralizes herself in them and says, "Everything is mine, and I give everything to my God. Just as his divine will is mine, so is everything mine, everything that has come out of it. Having nothing of my own, with its fiat I have everything, and I can give God to God. Oh, how happy, glorious, victorious I feel in the eternal volition. I possess everything, and I can give everything, without exhausting anything of my immense riches. So there is not one act, either in heaven or on earth, in which I do not find one who lives in my will." Then I continued to follow the acts of the divine fiat, and my always lovable Jesus added, "My daughter, my will is order, and in the soul in whom it reigns it places its divine order. And by virtue of this order the creature feels order in her thoughts, in her words, in her works and steps. Everything is harmony. Just as this divine will maintains order in all the works come out of the Supreme Being, in such a way that they are so linked together as to be inseparable from one another, and even though each work has its distinct office, by virtue of this order, the union is such that one could neither live nor act without the other, more so since one is the will that moves them and gives them life. In the same way, by virtue of the fiat, the soul feels within herself the order of her Creator, and feels so linked and united with him that she feels inseparable from her Creator and transfused with him. So she feels herself heavens. In the order of her actions, words, thoughts, and steps, she feels the stars flowing that adorn her beautiful heavens. She feels herself sun and wants to run to give light to all. She feels herself earth and enjoys the beautiful flowerings and the beautiful scenes of her sea of grace that flows within her soul. And she would want to put out these enchanting scenes and her beautiful flowery fields so that all may enjoy and receive the great good of the dominion of my divine will. So the true sign that my fiat reigns in the creature is that no clashing or disordered things can be seen, but highest harmony and perfect order, because everything she does has its origin in He who created her, and she does nothing but follow the order and the works of her Creator. Then he continued, saying, "Therefore, my daughter, the life of one who lets my adorable will live in her is so precious and striking to me, and of a beauty so rare, that it is impossible to find one similar to her. I see nothing but our works come out of her. If it were necessary for our glory, and for our inextinguishable love, she would form for us new heavens and all creation together, and flowing in the works of redemption and sanctification, she would give us new redemptions and sanctifications, because that divine will that did all this in our very selves can do so in the creature in whom it dominates and reigns. And just as it called all of our works from nothing, so it can call them from the nothing of this creature, not only by repeating all our works, but by adding yet more surprising things. And we, our Supreme Being, knowing that this creature can give us anything by virtue of our fiat, feel glorified and loved as if in fact she were doing them for us, because in her we look not only at what she does for us, but also at what she can do for us. See then how much preciousness she encloses, how striking she is in all of her acts. Her tints of beauty enrapture us and form the most delightful scenes for our divine gaze, so much so that, in our emphasis of love, we are forced to exclaim, "Oh, our will, how prodigious, admirable, lovable, and delightful you are in the creature in whom you reign. She is your veil in which, hiding yourself, you prepare the most beautiful and delightful scenes for us to enjoy." Therefore she can be called the most fortunate creature, who arrives at calling the attention of her God to make feast for him, and to let him enjoy his own works, and who can reach the point of saying, "By virtue of your will I possess everything, I bring you everything, and I want nothing, because what is yours is mine." August 12, 1929, Volume 26, Magnificence of the Creation. The black speck of the human will. I was doing my round in the divine volition, and my sweet Jesus, drawing me outside of myself, made me see the whole creation in the act of coming out of his creative hands. Each thing carried the mark of the creative hand of its maker. Therefore everything was perfect, of an enchanting beauty. Each created thing was animated by vivid light, either as property of nature given to it by God, or indirectly communicated by one who possessed it. Everything was light and beauty. But amid so much light and enchantment of beauty, one could see a black speck that appeared so ugly, especially being in the midst of so many works, so beautiful, majestic, and refulgent. This black speck aroused terror and compassion, because it seemed that, in its own nature, God had not created it black, but beautiful. Even more, it was once a work of the most beautiful, created by the Supreme Being. But while I was seeing this, my always lovable Jesus told me, "My daughter, everything that was done by us in creation remains always in the act of being done, as if we were continuously in the act of doing it. This is our creative strength, that when it does a work, it never withdraws. It remains inside of it as perennial act of life. It forms in it its continuous heartbeat and its uninterrupted breath. Therefore, while it was done once, it remains within it in act of doing it always. This is almost symbolized by the human nature, that while it was formed once, beginning its life with the heartbeat and the breathing, by necessity of living, it must breathe and palpitate continuously, otherwise the life ceases. We are inseparable from our works, and we like them so much that we delight in doing them continuously. And this is why they maintain themselves majestic, beautiful, fresh, as if there and then they were receiving the beginning of their life. Look at them, how beautiful they are. They are the narrators of our divine being and our perennial glory. But amid so much glory of ours, look, there is the black speck of the human will. Loving man with greater love, we endowed him with a free will, but abusing, he wanted to breathe and palpitate in his human will, not with ours, and therefore it changes continuously to the extent of blackening, losing its beauty and freshness, and it reaches the point of losing the divine life in its human nature. So, who will put to flight the thick darkening of the human will? Who will give back to it the freshness, the beauty of its creation? The acts done in our divine will, they will be the light that will dispel the darkness, and heat, that molding it with its heat, will destroy in it all the bad humors that have rendered it ugly. The acts done in my will be the rebound to all the human acts done with a human will. This rebound will restore the freshness, the beauty, the order as the human will was created. Therefore, many acts are needed, done by the creature in our divine volition, in order to prepare the counter-poison, the beauty, the freshness, the act opposite to everything evil that the human will has done. Then will our works in creation appear all beautiful. The black speck will disappear, and it will convert into a point, the most luminous one, in the midst of the magnificence of our created works. And our divine will take the dominion of all, and will reign on earth as it does in heaven. Therefore be attentive to operate in my divine will, because for each human act, the divine act is needed that, with empire, knocks down, purifies, and embellishes the evil done by the human will. August 12, 1930, Volume 28, How Despondency Doubles the Weight of the Pains. In what way Jesus visits us. How the first motive in God is love, and the divine will the life. I am under the empire of the divine Fiat, that alone knows my deep wounds that keep becoming more bitter and multiplying in my poor soul. But all my hope is that the divine will alone may reign in the circumstances, alas painful, of my existence down here, and that want to hasten my departure for the celestial fatherland. But while I was in the nightmare of most bitter pains, my sweet Jesus told me, "My daughter, do not lose heart, because disheartenment calls for despondency. That doubles the weight of the pains, so much so that the poor creature, with this doubled weight, can just barely drag herself on the way that she must cover, while my will does not want you to drag yourself, but to fly within its interminable light. And besides, I myself am the sorrow within which I make my little visits. Sorrow is the veil, but inside there is my person that, hidden within the veil of the sorrow, visits the creature. I myself am the necessities, and hidden inside of them I make her the most beautiful visits to make myself help in the necessities that I dispose. It is not just by making myself seen that I visit the creatures, but in so many ways that it can be said that in each encounter, in each circumstance, or great or little things that happen to her, it is a visit that I dispose myself to make her, in order to give her what is needed. For one who lives in my divine will, then, my state in her being permanent, not only do I visit her, but I keep expanding the boundaries of my will. Then I continue to follow the acts of the Supreme Fiat, to be able to follow, with my acts of love, the incessant and interminable love of my Creator. And my sweet Jesus told me, "My daughter, if you knew how sweet to me is your love, because I hear our echo in yours, our divine fibers, and as they raise your love into our own, it runs, and runs so sweetly within our love, by saying to us, 'I want to love you as much and in the same way as you have loved me.' For as many times as you have told me that you have loved me, so I too want to say it. And our delight is so great, wanting the creature to act as the repeater of our love, that we expand so much the love of the creature, as to feel within all our love the sweet sound of her love. More so, since in everything we have done for the creatures, the first motive, the first act, has been love. And since our love without our will would have been like fire without light, and our will without our love would have been like light without heat. Therefore what gave life to our love was the Fiat. So what moved us was love. but what gave and gives life to everything is our divine will. This is why one who wants to find true life must come into our will, in which one will find the fullness of our love, and the soul will acquire the prerogatives of our love that are fecund love, love that rises, love that embraces everything, love that moves everything as love, love insuperable and without end, love that loves and conquers everything. Therefore, when I hear you run from one created thing to another to place in them your I love you, and over each human act to invest them with your I love you, I hear the sweet sound of your love within our own, and I love you more. Then he added with a most tender tone, My daughter, our love toward creatures is so great that in each act she does, our love runs to love her, and our will runs to form the life of her act. So in each thought that she forms in her mind, it is an act of love that we send to her, and our will offers itself to form the life of her thought. In each word that she pronounces, in each beat of her heart, in each step that she takes, there are as many acts of our love that run toward her, and our fiat offers itself to form the life of her word, the beating of her heart, the step of her feet. Therefore the creature is kneaded with our love. She lives under the sweet storm of our love. Over her hangs our incessant love that loves her so much, and our fiat that runs rapidly to give life to each of her acts, be it even the littlest. Oh, if creatures knew how much we love them, how so inclined we are toward them, to love them always, always, as to let not even one thought of hers escape us, in which we do not send her our special and distinct love. Oh, how they would love us, and our love would not remain as though isolated, without the love of the creatures. Our love descends continuously toward the creatures, and their little love does not deign to rise toward their Creator. What sorrow, my daughter, to love and not to be loved. And this is the reason why, when I find a creature who loves me, I feel her love harmonizing with mine, and as my love descends toward her, so does her love ascend toward me. I abound so much for her, with graces, with favors, and with divine charisms, as to astonish heaven and earth. August 12, 1938, Volume 36. When the creature enters the divine will, heaven lowers itself and the earth rises to exchange the kiss of peace. The love of God in manifesting the truth. How everything becomes life. How all created things are members of Jesus. Varieties of love. The divine will is always around me, wanting to invest my acts with its light, to lay its life in them. It seems to me that it is attentive to the extent of persecuting me with love and light, because it wants in everything I do that I ask for its life. Oh, how happy I am in feeling persecuted with love and light by the supreme fiat. Then my sweet Jesus, surprising me, said, So you see, my daughter, in wanting that the creature live in my will, my love reaches such an excessive point that I even persecute her with love and light. Love eclipses all evils in such a way that, seeing only my will, the creature abandons herself in it and makes us do what we want. Love attracts her, delights her, so that she would let us win. You must know that as the creature enters our will to form her act, heaven lowers itself while the earth rises. So they meet. What a happy encounter! Heaven, feeling transported to earth by the creative strength of the divine Fiat, kisses the earth, the human generations, and at any cost wants to give to them what it possesses, to content the divine volition that brought it on earth, because it wants to reign in all. As the earth is being raised to heaven, the creatures feel an unknown strength that leads to good, a celestial air that imposes itself on all, making them breathe a new life. An act in my will is almost incredible. These acts will form the new day. The human generations will feel as though being renewed through them, rejuvenated in good. They will form the disposition to dispose the human generations to receive their life, to let it reign. These acts of the creature done in my volition will be the endowment, the potent preparation, the most effective means to obtain a good so great. After this he added, "My daughter, our love is almost unbelievable. When we have to manifest a truth regarding our will, first we love it within ourselves. We make it easier. We adapt it to the human intelligence, so that the creature can easily understand it and make it her own life. We provide it with our love, and then we make it known, as a sweetheart who wants to give himself to her, as life feeling the need to be formed in her. But not yet satisfied, we purify the human intelligence. We invest it with our light and we renew it, so that it may know our truth, kiss it, enclose it within itself, and give it all the freedom to form its life, remaining transformed in that truth. So each one of our truths brings our divine life into the creature as a lover that loves and wants to be loved. Our love is such that we adapt ourselves to the human conditions to facilitate this knowledge, since if we know each other, it is easier to win the human will to ourselves. It will have the interest in possessing its God. Without knowledge, the ways are closed, the communications broken, and we remain as the God far away from the creatures, even though we are inside and outside of them, and they remain far away from us. Nobody can possess a good without knowing it. Therefore, we want to make known that everything becomes divine life within one who lives in the divine will. In everything she does, thinking, speaking, working, walking, loving, my Fiat, possessing its creative virtue, lays its life down and thinks, speaks, works, walks, and loves, forming the operating and the speaking creation, using that creature to continue its creation, or to do even more beautiful things. So creation is not finished, but still continues in the souls who live in our will. And if the order, beauty, and power of our works can be seen in the creation, then the love, order, and beauty of our creative virtue will be seen in the creature, repeating our divine lives each time the creature gives us her acts to let us work. The creature is life. It operates differently than creation. Therefore, we feel an irresistible love to form our lives within her. Oh, how we fling ourselves, how happy we are, how our love finds its rest and our will its completion, which is forming our life in her. The works and the steps of those who do not live in our will are instead without life, like painted pictures that cannot receive any life. They can neither give life nor can they produce any good. There cannot be life or good without my will. Then I was adding my acts in the divine will after having had Holy Communion, when my sweet Jesus told me, "How beautiful it is when I descend as sacrament in the heart, and I find it in my will. I find everything in it. I find my mother and queen, and I feel that I receive again the glory, as if I were incarnating myself again. I find all my works surrounding me, honoring me, loving me. And since my will circulates as blood and palpitates in all created things, they are united with me, as if they were limbs originating from me, remaining in me. Therefore, everything I did on earth and all created things are like my arms, my feet, my heart, my mouth. They love me and glorify me in an infinite way. For the creature living in my will, all that is mine is hers too, so she can give me my living humanity to love me, to keep me separated and protected from all. She can give me the love I had in creating the sun. What specialty of love this light contains! It is filled with many different and innumerable effects of sweetness, colors, and fragrances. In each effect there is a distinct love of mine, and you can see it in the varieties of sweetness. Each one is different from the other. My love is insuperable, not satisfied with letting man taste only one sweetness of its love, delighting him with one color, one single fragrance. It wanted to place many different sweetnesses, to drown and feed him with my love. My primary food was my love. All other things came in secondary order. So the sun that does so much good to the earth lays its light under man's steps. It fills his eye with light. It invests him completely, following him everywhere. It is my love that runs within its light, and loving him lets itself be tread upon by his steps. My love fills his eye with light, investing him completely, following him everywhere. That light contains my infinite extensions of love, my love that languishes, that wounds and enraptures, my love that burns, that sweetens everything, that gives back life to all. My love that takes the creature from every side, carrying her in its arms. Look, my daughter, look at this light, and even you will not be able to count the many varieties of my love. If you live in my will, the sun will be yours, a part of you. You will be able to give me as many varieties of love for as many as I have given to you. All created things are my members. Heaven and each star are distinct loves of mine toward the creature. The wind, a limb of mine, does nothing other than blow my distinct love. Now it blows to her the freshness of my love, now the caress of my love. Now it blows to her with my impetuous love. Now it brings her the refreshment of my love. Even the drops of water in the sea squeeze together to never cease to murmur the varieties of love with which I love the creatures. Even in the air they breathe, I send with each breath a distinct I love you. Therefore, descending in the sacrament, I bring created things with me as my own members, together with enchanting scenes of my love, so diverse and various, and I place them inside the creature like an army, to love her and to be loved. How hard and painful it is to love and not be loved. So live always in my will, and it will present to you the many ways with which I loved you. In this way, you will love me the way I want you to. End of August 12th. Fiat.